Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
So how's everything going today? Well, I'm here in the bus. We are still on the road. We are actually located in Orlando, Florida today. It's raining outside, so I thought I would get this week's show out the door. This week's show is of a topic that somebody sent me a comment, I don't know, a long time ago about creative expression, putting your ideas out there and the fear of rejection or fear of people not liking what you do. Creative expression is critically important, meaning being able to do your whatever creative drive you have, whether it's ideas, innovations, new gadgets, new software applications, artwork, photography, whatever it is, but putting it out there to let others see and look for that feedback, look for that encouragement. And I think of it as all as encouragement. So today's show is all about creative expression, and it's around giving encouragement and receiving encouragement. And it really is this two-way process. So you're going to want to listen to this show. It gives you a little bit of history, at least of my early creative expression and how I got encouraged. And then what I do, and what I would encourage you to do to encourage others, to get others to step out, be willing to step out and share that creative expression, whatever form it takes. Take that risk, putting it out there publicly and letting people react to it. So before we jump into today's episode, I want to encourage you to like and to subscribe. You do not want to miss this or the future episodes of the show. So please go ahead and like it and subscribe so you get each and every week's show. We are coming up towards the end of season 16. Yes, season 16. We will be starting season 17 here in the early parts of March. So stay tuned for that. We'll have some exciting new things happening with the start of season 17. So with that, let's jump in to today's episode of Killer Innovations. A little encouragement goes a long way when you are experimenting with being creative, when you're coming up with new ideas, art projects, photography, whatever it is. Getting that early encouragement kind of gives you that energy to do it again and repeat it and work at it. Now, my first memory of my creativity being encouraged and recognized came in my 7th grade art class. I had an art teacher who liked to experiment with a lot of different media, paints and charcoal and drawing and etc. And this was a required class. It wasn't something I would have raised my hand and said, yes, I need to take that class. But in this particular session, she was teaching how to carve linoleum blocks. So you would take a sharp kind of knife, either V-shaped or straight-edged knife, and you cut the linoleum. And whatever you cut away does not get printed. What you leave, which is raised when you spread ink on it and you press it down on paper, leaves an impression. Now, keep in mind, I was a Boy Scout, so even when I was in 7th grade, yes, you could actually carry a knife to school. I could carry my Boy Scout pocket knife in my pocket. And as a Boy Scout, you were always whittling and carving and cutting and whatever. So this kind of seemed like a natural thing for me, given my affinity for knives as a 7th grader. So I took, it was like a duck to water. I got a hold of this linoleum block. I drew out my drawing in black magic marker, and then I proceeded to use the knife to cut away that part of the linoleum that I did not want to get printed, and then spread it with ink, and then I could stamp out and create almost an exact duplicate of this image multiple times. And I played around with that. I made multiple layers. So there were some things that were really high that came out really dark. And then I could skinny off different pieces of it. The ink would still transfer, but not be as bold. So I could create a little bit of shading. So I kind of was experimenting. This was kind of an insight for me that I just never knew I would be interested in. Now, the teacher really liked my particular linoleum block. I did one, and it was this dragon head. Now, at the time when I was in 7th grade, I was really big into watching Kung Fu, which was the big TV show at that time. And so I drew this dragon head. And the teacher really liked what I was doing and actually made a comment to the rest of the students in this art class, held up my artwork, showed my linoleum block, showed some of the things that I'd been experimenting with. And that was a great encouragement for me. Now, unknown to me, she submitted one of my prints that I had made with my linoleum block to a local art contest, and it came in as one of the top for the age category. So not only did I get the encouragement, but I got also the recognition. And my parents made a huge, big deal about it, telling all their friends, etc. I'm now 60, and guess what? I still have that linoleum block. It still sits in my office, up on a bookshelf, and every time I look at that, it takes me back to being that 7th grader and getting that first level of encouragement. Now, the same applies when we're creating innovations, right? We want to put our ideas out there, and putting our ideas out there is risky. Are people going to accept it? Or worse, they just ignore it? Or are they going to encourage it? Now, it's encouragement coming, whether it's from teachers or parents, or in the case of our careers, coworkers, our boss, etc. It's what really reminds us and actually reinforces the fact that we are all naturally creative. We all can create. We all can innovate. We can all create these things that we conceive in our minds and then actually translate and create something that we just conceived. In this case, I conceived this idea of a dragon head, drew it on a linoleum block, carved it, printed it, won a contest, got recognition from a teacher. That was all, that was kind of, like I said, my first memory of having my creativity, something I invented from scratch, getting that kind of recognition and that kind of encouragement. So the question is how do you encourage creative expression? Look, doing that linoleum and showing it to people and letting my teacher talk about it, it was risky. Students could have laughed. I've had many ideas that I've wanted to pitch that I've actually kind of self-filtered and said, no, other people are going to think it's stupid. Creative expression, putting it out there, taking a photograph and putting it up on Instagram and waiting to see what people say about it. Those are all important things. So what are you to do about this? Do you sit back and just wait to be encouraged? No. The point I want to make is you need to be an encourager of others. Once you understand the value of that encouragement, I'd love to go back to my junior high school class and thank the teacher. Can't do that. She's unfortunately has passed on, but other mentors I've had that have been encouraging to me, I make a point of going back to thank them. And the way I think about it is paying it forward, helping others, being an encourager to others. So when you see something out there, when you say that you see someone that's being highly creative or coming up with an idea, be an encourager. Your words, that encouragement can go a long way. Now, don't do it as false platitudes. Don't be encouraging everything. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's brilliant. Don't do false platitudes. People will read through that, and it actually will decrease the value of any of encouragement or any hope of encouragement you are getting. And don't just say, hey, I like it, but explain why. Well, I really like that. That's something that I never would have thought of. Or, wow, that's really a unique perspective. Explain why. Why is that idea, that artwork, that thing that this person created. Why is it that you like it? Ask questions. So how did you come up with that? What made you think about using that color or shooting that photograph that way or coming up with this new mobile app? What was it that triggered that idea? And then encouraging it, plussing it. When we say plus it, what do we mean? It means make it better. Hey, that's really great. It's a great perspective. Have you thought about maybe doing something like that, but in maybe a brighter red? Because I really like red, or whatever. As far as just kind of getting them engaged, sharing your input. Not to be critical. Don't say, well, I don't like black. You really should have made it in red. But be an encourager. Help them plus it. Give them feedback that they can use, not just that you like it or you hate it. And then tell others about this person and about this idea, and become a fan, become an evangelist for their ideas, for their work, for their creativity, for this idea that they're working on. Now, likewise, you need to be willing to receive encouragement. You need to be able to accept it when people come to you and say, wow, that was a great idea, great piece of artwork, great idea, great concept. You need to be willing to accept it. Now, that's hard for a lot of people. Look, 75% of people suffer from imposter syndrome. One of the key characteristics of imposter syndrome is that feeling like I don't deserve it. I've been lucky. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I just got lucky to get this career opportunity, etc. Right? It's our irrational mind trying to give something else credit for the success that we've been able to achieve. And look, I'm a big sufferer from imposter syndrome. If you haven't heard the story, you can go over to YouTube and just search for Phil McKinney, imposter syndrome. There's a TEDx talk that I gave that goes into my experience with imposter syndrome. And one of the characteristics of imposter syndrome is not accepting encouragement, not accepting it. When people say, oh, yeah, you did a great job, and you go, oh, yeah, I was lucky, or, oh, it's really my team, those types of things. You need to avoid that when it comes to this encouraging creative expression. When you've expressed this creativity in some form of an idea, a piece of software, a new gadget, device, a photograph, an art piece of artwork, and when people say, wow, that's really great, you need to just accept it and say, hey, thank you. Assume positive intent. They're not trying to smoke you, right? Assume positive intent. They're trying to be that encouragement. But then just don't say, hey, thank you very much. You say, hey, that's great. What is it you really like about it? What was it that really spoke to you? Find out why they like what they like about it. What is it that kind of triggered that response for them? And use it as a learning process. How do people react to your ideas or your photography or whatever it might be? And then also ask them what they didn't like about it. So, hey, well, how could I improve this? What would have made this, a little bit better, or, spoke to you in a different way, or caused an even stronger reaction? So, one, you need to be an encourager. You need to encourage others, but you also need to, again, be willing to accept that encouragement coming to you. Now, in my case, as part of the work that I do, I'm not the one coming up with a lot of the ideas now. My role is really building teams and encouraging the individuals on that teams to come up with ideas that can turn into innovations. My role is attracting good talent, making sure they have a good funding base, protect them from outside antibodies that will try to shut down or stop that work, and hopefully to be an encourager, to be the person that says, hey, great idea, I really love it. Now, I'll be quite honest. You may think of me as an extrovert. I've been doing this radio show now 16 years. We'll start season 17 coming up here, not in a couple of weeks. And you think of me as an extrovert. I've done speeches and hundreds, if not thousands, of YouTube videos and all these podcasts and my radio show and all that. You think I'm an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert. I like social interaction, but I'm not overly. I'm just as happy being a homebody and sitting and and just being by myself. So I actually have to work really hard and remind myself that I need to be that encourager. I need to be that one that goes out and purposely finds those people who are doing interesting work and to be an encourager. Or if I see something online. Now I find that online is easy. On Instagram, finding somebody doing some really interesting work, I can be an encourager. Now, at the same time, you could also be doing that online and going, wow, my stuff's not as good as them. I must not be very creative. Now, be careful of that, right? Be careful of the comparison. We've talked about that in our previous show of, don't let social media be your validation. So I have a friend of mine, someone who I worked with at HP. He is a phenomenal photographer. Now, he still works at HP, but he spends all of his free time and his vacations, and he travels, and he takes these phenomenal photographs. And some of these photographs have actually been purchased and used on things like Ravensburger puzzles. So if you're big into puzzles, some of the photographs that Ravensburger uses on their puzzles is done by this friend of mine, Ernie Vader. Ernie is a phenomenal photographer. I follow him on Instagram. I follow his photographs. Now, I take photographs, but I'm not anywhere in the category of Ernie. But, and I'll like the photographs of his that I really like, that are kind of in a style I really like. And I post my own photographs up there also. And I'll tell you, though, all Ernie has to do is when he hits a like on one of my photographs, that's validation. That is encouragement. To have somebody that I respect, whose photography skill is in a whole different league than my own, but when he says, hey, I like this photograph of yours, that's an encouragement. And you can do that, and it's pretty easy, and you can encourage people to say, wow, I really like that, what you're doing. I try to do the same when people pitch ideas to me, try to be positive and give them feedback and point out what I really like about their idea, but at the same time, also giving them feedback on how to improve the idea, make that idea even better so that they can move that idea down the field. So what I would encourage you is your next step is be that encourager. See something, say something. If you see something you like, a photograph, piece of artwork, you go to a county fair and some artist is there and they've got something that you really like, just don't sit there and nod your head. Walk up and say, wow, I really like this piece. Great work. Even if you don't buy it, that encouragement will go a long way. Do not keep it to yourself. Rattling it around in your head saying, wow, that was a nice piece of artwork. You just didn't say anything. Come on. Be an encourager. And also be willing to submit to others your ideas, your creativity. If you're into photography, keeping all your photographs to yourself and just showing them to your spouse, okay, but take that risk, put it out there, show that artwork, post it up on Instagram, post it on Facebook, sell your prints at the county fair, and get that reaction. Now, you got to be willing to also take the positive and the negative, but it's all encouragement. It's all learning. It's all about, taking it to the next step. Now, here's the one little warning I would give you is don't give recognition expecting to get recognition back. If you don't go out there and say, I'm going to encourage so-and-so's photograph, and then wait for them to come over and like your photograph. It doesn't work that way. You need to give encouragement without expecting anything in return. Do it as a true admiration, true encouragement. You will get encouraged if you put your ideas out there, if you put your creativity out there, if you put your ideas out there, your artwork, your ideas that you want to turn into an innovation. Put it out there, and then see what that reaction, what it generates from the standpoint of feedback, encouragement, and etc. But do it out of true admiration. Be an encourager without expecting encouragement back. But trust me, it will come back. You will, if you put your ideas out there, if you put your artwork out there, if you take that risk and that exposure and put something out there for people to react to, you will get that encouragement. You will find those people that like what you're doing, who will give you that feedback, and that becomes kind of, I don't know, well, at least for me, it becomes that fuel in the engine. I remember in the early days of the podcast having some early people, Woody being one. He still listens to this podcast. He's become a friend. In the early days of the podcast, when I was CTO at HP, you would think, okay, I've got enough. I've achieved some level of career success. But just getting those early emails, and every email I get from listeners of the podcast, that encouragement is what keeps it going. It's what's kept it going for 16 years. So even just that little encouragement, putting it out there and just seeing if anybody's even listening and getting that feedback saying, hey, we like what you're doing, we really like this show, or we liked whatever, that encouragement is the fuel, at least for me, that keeps me coming back. And also, when you do receive encouragement, be gracious. Accept it. But here's the important piece. Pay it forward. If you're getting encouragement for your creativity, pay it forward by encouraging others. Thanks for the time in your schedule to listen to the show this week. Would appreciate any thoughts, feedback, comments you might have. I mean, actually, I'm playing off of the core content. Give a little encouragement, give a little feedback. Greatly appreciated. You can send that to phil@killerinnovations.com. And just remember, you are highly creative. Create and share is the first step to improving. Taking your ideas, taking those innovations, taking that artwork, putting it out there and getting that feedback, that is what's needed as part of a multi-step process to constantly improve. Musicians, do they just go out there and write the hit song? No, they write some okay songs, but they get that encouragement and try over and over again. So where can you share at? Well, in the case of the community that's part of this show, hop on over to theinnovators.community and you can share your ideas. You can share those innovations, those things that you are working on. There's a whole community of people just like you that hang out. It's a free community. There's no fees associated to joining it. You can join over there at the community. You can post, you can share, you can read, you can give people thumbs up, you can give people feedback. You can help people. You can join in on teams of people working on new ideas, new innovations, those types of things. And it's also a place to give and get encouragement. Also, you can post in the show notes, or you can post over on the community ideas for new episodes. If there's content, questions, things that you think we should be answering here in the show, or questions you always wanted to have answered, let us know. Post them in the comments, post them over in the community, or just send them to me directly. I would also ask for you to like and rate the show. Wherever you get your podcast, go back over there and post a comment. Like it, rate it. It helps other people find the show and helps me pay it forward. My early career was greatly influenced by my first mentor, Bob Davis. When I asked Bob, how do I pay it back? He laughed. He says, you cannot pay it back. You have to pay it forward. That was that one statement, you have to pay it forward, is what got me started down to produce this podcast starting back in 2005 as a way for me to share my experiences, my lessons learned, to help others learn from that and hopefully apply it to their jobs, their careers, their successes. So help me pay it forward. Help me fulfill my promise to my mentor to pay it forward by letting others know about the show. So if you find the show helpful and you think it applies to a specific person, forward them the link, forward that person the files, and let them listen to the show. Do not forget to subscribe so you don't miss future shows. We're coming up on the start of season 17 here in March, and you're not going to want to miss the content. We've been doing this for 16 years. We try to produce content that's highly helpful, things that actually you can apply and use, both to encourage your creativity, your ideas, your innovations, things that will change the world, that will make the world a better place. So don't forget to subscribe. You do not want to miss the episode. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.